それでは続いての講演に移りたいと思います。続きましては、東京大学地震研究所准教授ラリス・マッデゲダラさんによる講演です。マッデゲダラさんは1999年にスリランカペラデニア大学土木工学科をご卒業後、東京大学大学院工学系研究科社会基盤学専攻修士及び博士課程を修了されています。現在は東京大学地震研究所に勤務し、地震災害とその余波に関する大規模シミュレーション、物理ベースシミュレーション、統合シミュレーションの研究に従事されています。演題は、復興計画を定量的に評価するための災害後経済の高解像度シミュレーションに向けてです。こちらは英語講演となっています。会場で日本語音声が必要だという方は、公式ウェブサイトの Zoom リンクからお入りいただき、言語をお選びください。オンラインの方は日本語を選択してください。また講演が始まりましたら、スライドゥでの質問を受付開始します。どうぞご活用ください。それではご準備はよろしいでしょうか。マッテゲダラさん、よろしくお願いいたします。
Thank you very much. My name is Lalith, and I would like to thank the organizers for inviting for this precious occasion to share our research on towards high-resolution simulation of post-disaster economies to quantitatively evaluate the recovery plans. Many people contributed to our work. Especially, I would thank to Joshua San and Amit San. They were my former students. First, let me start explaining why we need high-resolution simulations. In this graph, we can see that almost 80% of the Japanese industries are located in this region where we are expecting Tokai, Tonankai, Nankai earthquakes. Considering the economic importance of this region, we have to evaluate any recovery plans comprehensively, considering their long-term economic progress. Even if a firm quickly recovers, it cannot start production unless it has access to its supply chain is recovered. It has access to lifelines like water, sewer, gas, power, so on, and transportation. At the same time, the employees should be in a state to come back to work. Therefore, when estimating how much firm can produce, not only the recovery state of that firm, but also the recovery state of its supply chain and the lifeline has to be considered. Even the recovery state of the homes of the employees has to be considered. Only through such comprehensive checking, we can accurately evaluate the long-term economic performance of potential recovery plans. Such comprehensive evaluation of recovery plans require one-to-one scale models of economy and integration with the high-resolution integration with the lifeline networks. There are many numerical methods for simulating economy, and the most standard is DSG, which has a solid mathematical background and proven performance. However, we cannot use these standard technology, the methodologies, since they have strong limitation in number of economic entities we can include. Therefore, we choose agent-based methods. Even though it's rather new, it has flexibility to accommodate large number of agents, at the same time flexibility to integrate with the lifeline networks. We face two main problems when to simulate large-scale economies in one-to-one scale. We have to face two challenges. One is absence of numerical implementations capable of simulating millions of agents. In case of Japanese economy, we need 130 million agents. At the same time, we have to it's challenging to calibrate and validate these models to reproduce the past observations. We overcame these difficulties in this research and developed HPC enhanced agent-based model capable of simulating national economies in one-to-one scale. In this presentation, I'm going to share our experiences, especially I'm going to explain the basics of our agent-based model and how we implement HPC and enhanced extension, and then the model calibration and validation, and then finally integration of our agent-based model with our physics-based simulations. This figure shows the schematic diagram of a typical agent-based model. At the heart, there are many economies. In case of Japan, there are 108 economies. In the 108 industries. Each industry consists of tens of thousands of firms. Firms in a given industry produce the same type of product. They buy intermediate goods from other industries and sell their products to other industries and households and the government, and export some of the products. The workers provide the labor to the industries, and in return they get the wages. The banks provide the financial support to the industries. The government collects taxes from firms, active households and banks, and provides social benefit to the households. The economy connects the national economy connects to the outside world through the foreign imports and export. Likewise, almost all the major economic interactions are included in these agent-based models. We use the model developed by Dr. Sebastian Polidna, and he has verified and validated these models. At the same time, this model can be initialized with available public data. That's one of the strong points. The actions of each of these agents are mathematically well defined. As an example, when a firm reaches a bank asking for a loan, bank first check whether it can legally extend it has financial capacity to legally extend the loan, and then evaluate the probability of this specific firm going bankrupt, and then considering the risk involved, it decides how much to extend and what is the interest rates. Likewise, all the interactions and the decision making are mathematically well defined. Also, the model is very detailed. As an example, the government income consists of various components such as the social security contribution, labor income, value-added taxes, capital income taxes, so on, and even including the subsidies. Such exhaustive details enable us to test various strategies to accelerate economic recovery, such as providing subsidies or financial support to selected entities. To simulate the Japanese economy in one-to-one scale, we need a code capable of simulating 130 million agents. Developing high-performance computing extension to simulate such large number of agents is quite challenging. Let me briefly explain the challenge involved. In ABEMs, agent-based models, millions of agents randomly interact with others over dense or centralized graphs. Goods market is a good example of a dense graph, and the bank network is a good example of a centralized graph. The bidirectional interaction of these agents is the random interaction is the main the hurdle in developing high-performance computing extensions. Let me explain this hurdle using a simple example. In the goods market, a buyer visits randomly selected sellers until it satisfies its needs. And in distributed memory parallel, the extension of the codes, we assign subsets of agents to different CPUs. And therefore, a buyer visiting a seller located in other CPU involved the communication through the network, which is tens of around thousands or 10,000 times slower than visiting a buyer seller in its own computer. So millions of buyers making billions of random visits to sellers until they are satisfied is the huge challenge we have to address when they are developing distributed memory parallel codes. And with various strategies, we addressed this issue and succeeded in developing highly scalable parallel computing extensions. I will skip the details and show the final results. This table shows the time and the runtime and the scalability when we simulate the 330 million agents, which is equal to entire Eurozone. As the last column shows, we have quite a good scalability for this type of problems. And most importantly, as the second column shows, we can simulate a single period of 330 million agents within 2 minutes and only using 128 CPU cores. Obviously, this is sufficient to simulate a Japanese national economy in 1-to-1 scale and even conduct Monte Carlo simulations. I skipped lots of the details, and if you are interested, please look at this paper mentioned in the bottom. Next, let's move to our second challenge, model calibration and validation. The model requires two types of data, model parameters which are shared by all the types of agents, and the data required to initialize individual agents. The main source of shared data is the input-output table, business census, and the system of national accounts. From business census, we extracted number of firms and number of workers in each industry, and from system of national accounts, we got time histories of various macroeconomic indices such as GDP, GDP deflator, so on. Input-output table is the main source of initializing industry-related coefficients. It provides input necessary for a firm in a given industry to produce its output, and the total wages paid by that industry, capital consumed, operating surplus, so on. At the same time, it gives how much a given industry sold to other industries, households, government, how much it imported and exported, so on. In case of household data, we use demographic data, family income and expenses survey data, system of national accounts. All these data are coming from ESTAT, the government portal for statistics. Ideally, data for each individual agent should be set according to characteristics of their real-world counterpart. Because of the privacy reason, we don't have access to the individual economic entities' data. In the absence of such high-resolution data, we can disaggregate macroeconomic observation according to the observations like the size distribution. Luckily, Teikoku Data Bank generously provides us historical data of 1.4 million Japanese firms. And with this, we could initialize the firm agents using their real-world counterparts. Even though Teikoku Data Bank provides several parameters, currently we are using only two, the sales and the labor. And even these, we have to do some pre-processing to address certain incompatibilities. And when we address these incompatibilities, we made sure to preserve the characteristics observed in the original data. As an example here, when we adjust the number of workers, we made sure that we keep the original characteristics. We can, when initializing individual agents, we can either use, as I mentioned, we can either use macroeconomic data and disaggregate it, or use individual firms' data provided by Teku Data Bank. When we disaggregate macroeconomic observations to initialize individual firms, we set the number of workers by disaggregating the workers according to the size distribution, and then labor productivity we set to the sectoral average labor productivity, and the production we set according as a multiplication of these two, so on. Unlike that, when we use firm level data, we can directly get these parameters from the firm level of the historical data. Therefore, as we can see, the firm level, the model initialized with firm level data is more close to the real world, and we expect that will produce a better performing results. In addition to the initialization, we use historical observations in firms' decision making. Specifically in deciding amount of production and the unit price, we use historical data. Firm agents decides how much to produce in the next quarter, considering the previous quarter's demand and the expected growth rate. We estimate the expected growth rate looking at the historical production. We can extrapolate it using AR or other machine learning models or any other techniques. In case of the historical data, we have three options. One is to use a national-wide production, and sector production, or individual firms production, firm level production. When we use national level production, all the firms in the entire country will decide to increase or decrease their production simultaneously. On the other hand, when we use sectoral data, firms in a given sector will increase and decrease their production simultaneously, but different sectors will have different behavior. As you can see, the production behavior, production data is quite different between the national level and the sectoral level. Sectoral production has quite a different time history. Likewise, we expect the individual firms have quite a different production history compared to the sectoral data. And when we use when we change from coarse grain to fine grain, we move very close to the real world, and therefore we expect the fine grain data from TDB must produce accurate results. In order to validate, we simulate the Japanese economy. Specifically, we initialized the model with 2015 Q1 data and simulated the quarterly progress of Japanese economy from 2015 to 2020. The model consists of nearly 127 million agents, 1.8 million firms, 60 million working population, and 62 million inactive population. That is retired people and disabled and the children. We use AR with leg 1 in the decision making of firm decision making. Also, we conducted Monte Carlo simulation with 1,000 random samples to deal with uncertainties. Let's compare the model performance under 3 different resolutions of input we considered. These 3 columns shows the output produced using national production history data, sector-wise production history data, and individual firm level production history data. And the first row shows the real production, and the second row shows the real household consumption nationwide. The green line here shows the observation, and the black line at the center indicates the mean value of our Monte Carlo simulations. Darker region shows the dark and lighter regions show 1 and 2 standard deviations. As we can see, our mean value is very close to the observations, and when we move towards the left, our accuracy improves. Not only the observation mean value is becoming closer to the observed data, but also the uncertainty drastically decreases. This is what we hypothesized. The model performs better with the finer resolution data. This graph shows the other national level indices such as real production, real GDP, real household consumption, national nominal production, and the nominal GDP. As we can see, all are in quite a good agreement with observations. Next, let's compare the results at the sectoral level, one level the finer, specifically sectoral production. The first row shows the commerce sector's production, and the second row shows the general purpose machinery. As we can see, like earlier, they are in good agreement, and with the finer the input data, the better the accuracy. These are the production data of another 6 sectors. There are 108 sectors. Unfortunately, I cannot show all. And the top row shows the large sectors, and the bottom row shows somewhat smaller sectors. As you can see, both the large sectors and small sectors can be accurately captured by our model. Now let's validate the model at the finest level, each individual firm. Here I compare 6 firms randomly selected from different sectors. Due to data confidentiality, unfortunately I cannot tell the name of these firms. The top rows are from firms from large sectors like commerce, medical, services, and building construction, and the lower are from small sectors. We can see the plots in these plots that the model is able to closely replicate the validation data, especially for the large sectors. And even for the small sectors, there's a decent agreement. These comparisons of economy-wide, sector-wide, and firm-wide observations indicate that our model is capable of closely reproducing the past observation at all the 3 levels of resolution: national level, sector level, and individual firm level. Since it would be impractical to show all compare all the 1.4 million firms, here I compute this normal root mean square error, and these 2 plots shows those RMSE for commerce and the general purpose machinery sectors. As we can see, the RMSE is quite small for both the sectors, indicating that most of the firms closely reproduce the observations. Next, let me move to the integration with the physics-based models. We integrated our economic simulator with our physics-based simulators. In our group, we have developed very high-resolution physics-based simulators to simulate earthquake disasters. And we use PACT, a tool developed by Federal Emergency Management Agency of United States, to convert the building's response indices such as the acceleration, velocity, and displacement of and the drift angle of each flow of each building to economic losses and cost of repair. Then we fed these losses and cost of repair of each individual building to the economic model considering these losses as a capital losses. And as a demonstrative application, we considered earthquake scenario, specifically the impending non-Kaitro earthquake scenario proposed by the Cabinet Office, and simulated 1.8 million buildings in Osaka Bay Area. There were 15 types of occupancies, and the analysis was done, especially the ground motion below the buildings were done using 1D soil amplification model. And for simulating the buildings, we use a nonlinear multi-degree of freedom in this simulation. This figure shows the results of the PACT analysis, specifically the repair cost. Average repair cost we observe is around 25,000 yen per meter squared, and in comparison, the average cost for a new building is 323,000 Japanese yen per meter square. We included only 15 usage categories. That's all we could extract from our GIS data. And this table shows the average repair cost for each occupancy type. We assume disaster occurred at the first quarter of 2015 in the absence of real data, and we made several assumptions regarding the post-disaster economy. Some of the assumptions are that the debris generated is around 25% of the repair cost. Workers with damaged homes work only half the time, and households receive financial aids from government, and so on. Further, we considered two recovery scenarios. In the first plan, there is no centralized reconstruction schedule. The first to catch a construction company recovers first. Under the second scenario, who recovers first is decided based on their economic output after the recovery. These two colors indicates the recovery plan 1 and recovery plan 2. As we can see, the economic recovery is fast under the scenario 1. Driven by the very high demand in the market, all the firms ramp up their production, and since everybody goes to the market looking for recovery firms, there's a big demand in the market, and followed by that, the firms ramp up their production, and that lead to the higher production rate. However, in long term, it settles to a state below the business as usual scenario. This third graph shows the business as usual scenario, or when there's no disaster. On the other hand, the second one, where we control who recovers first, the recovery is slow, but it settles to in long term, it settles to a state very close to the business as usual scenario. And here also in the damaged capital, we can see the scenario 1 recovers from almost 2 quarters earlier compared to the scenario 2. And this graph, according to this graph, we can see that the scenario 1 creates a high inflation rate in long term, while the scenario 2 creates a lesser inflation in long term. Through this, though this recovery is somewhat simple, it shows that in long-term benefit can be obtained with strategic control of recovery. Let's look into further details. This graph shows the change of capital during the recovery period, except these two, the waste disposal and the building construction, which is involved in the recovery. All the others have similar capital recovery pattern. However, when we look at their production, we can see that they have heterogeneous behavior, especially this one, miscellaneous, the foods and eateries, takes around 5 years to come back to the business as usual state. Also, the wholesale sector takes a long time to recover back to return to the business as usual state. On the other hand, eating and drinking service sector and the retail quickly recovers, even exceed the business as usual scenario within a short period. As you can see, even in this simple the disaster scenario, we can see highly heterogeneous response of different sectors. Now let me conclude my the talk. We developed an HPC-enhanced agent-based model for simulating Japanese economy in one-to-one scale and validated it comparing with past records and in 3 different levels: national level, sectoral level, and each individual firm level. Also, we integrated with our economic model with our high-resolution physics-based disaster simulators and conducted a simple demonstrative application. And in future, we are planning to further extend this model to more accurately capture disaster hit economies. Specifically, we want to simulate the Japanese economy as a collection of prefectural economies. This is important because the consumption behavior in Hokkaido is very different from consumption behavior in Tokyo. Unless we capture this heterogeneous behavior, our simulations of disaster hit economies wouldn't be accurate. And also we want to integrate our model with lifeline networks and transportation network so that we can capture the influence of the recovery of these lifeline networks. For this, we need fine high resolution data, and Teikoku Data Bank provides these necessary high resolution data. As shown in this figure, we can find which firm is located at which location. This will help us accurately initialize the model, thereby accurately simulate the post-disaster economy. Thank you very much.
Maddegedaraさん、どうもありがとうございました。それではここからはおよそ5分間の質疑応答に移りたいと思います。まずは会場の方から挙手をお願いします。質問は日本語でお願いいたします。どなたかいらっしゃいますでしょうか。はい、ではよろしくお願いいたします。
ありがとうございました。日本語でと言われたので日本語で質問させていただきます。ちょっと英語で準備していたので混乱しているんですが、最後のこの一つ前のスライドで、違う業種において、リカバリープランが異なるということを示しておられましたが、それらを複合して、業種ごとに違うリカバリープランを作って最適化するということがこのモデルだとできる形になっているんでしょうかというのが質問です。
So since I was told that I could ask the question in Japanese, even though I prepared in English for my question, but then let me speak in Japanese. So could you go back to the one page back? And so here you mentioned for that the different sectors has a different recovery plan, and so but your model is combining all these the different sectors, different data with the different recovery plans to have a more optimized recovery plan at the end of the day. Is that you wanted to say?
Oshi-sensei, thank you very much for the question. Actually, what I wanted to tell is, even though recovery is almost similar for most of the sectors, their economic response or their economic recovery, their capital recovery is, they repair almost simultaneously, or their capital recovery has the same pattern. However, their economic recovery is not similar. Some sectors recover quite fast, some sector takes quite a long time. That's because under the pressure of financial strain of recovery, the consumer's demand changes. For some sectors, the demand does not change or increase. For some sectors, demand is decreasing. This completely depends on the people's behavior under the strain of the recovery. Strain of recovery.
そうですね。まず質問どうもありがとうございます。そうですね。私の方の説明としましては、まずこのリカバリーというのがこの復興のところですね。そのセクターによっても異なるセクターの中でもほぼこの復興というところによってはほぼ同じ振る舞いなわけなんです。ただその資本のところというのは同じパターンを踏んでいましても、その経済的な復興ですね、経済的なリカバリーというのがこのセクターによって振る舞いが全く違います。それの中の理由としましては、例えばなんですけれども、資本だとか資金のところ、そこについてのいろんな制限があったりということもありまして、そのセクターによっては本当にリカバリーというのが早いところ、それから長期的にかかってしまうところなどといったさまざまなことがあります。それにはその各々のセクターの中で存在します消費者の人たちのやはり需要とかの振る舞いが違うということもあります。
I'm not sure whether I answered your question directly.
というか、私その質問にちゃんと回答できているかわからないんですが。
もうちょっとやっていいですか。はい。質問に回答していただいてありがとうございます。より詳しく述べさせていただくと、今このスライドでは3種類の、あるいは2種類の、リカバリープランを比較しているんですが、セクターごとにリカバリープランが変わると、それが波及して別のセクターに影響を与えていくと理解できると思うんですね。その時に収束するんでしょうかと、あるいは一つの最適な解というのが見つかっていけそうなんでしょうかというのが質問です。
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for answering my questions. Actually, let me give you more detail about my point of my question is. So on this slide, there are actually two different types of the recovery plan. Those are actually compared here. So if that there is a recovery plan is different by sector, and I think for that the impact on another sector also would be different as well. So my question is, but with your model, so that the recovery plan, is it going to be the optimized than the current?
Yes, we can set different recovery plans for different sectors. And I think your question is whether we can find optimal recovery plans. No, we cannot. We cannot find the optimal recovery plan. Only thing we can do is, given several recovery plans, we can compare them quantitatively and tell which one performs well. And in this comparison, we can do it very comprehensively, considering availability of the access to the supply chain network and the sewer, gas, water, and even the availability of labor forces. It's not just the company recovers and they can produce. So our strength is this ability to comprehensively evaluate and compare multiple recovery plans. And the finding optimal recovery plans is belongs to so-called NP hard problems, and with millions of agents, economic entities, I think it's nearly impossible at current technology, with current technology. Thank you.
そうですね、ここで説明しているのは、もちろんさっき繰り返しになりますけれども、セクターによってはリカバリープランが様々にあるということで、その質問の回答ですけれども、その最適化できるかというのは、実は私のモデルで最適化するわけではないです。で、私のモデルで何ができますかと言いますと、もちろん様々なセクターによっていろいろ振る舞いが違います。そこを一つ一つのセクターごとに理解をして、そして全体的に包括的な形でそれを見比べができるということなんです。例えばサプライチェーンだったり、それからライフラインのいろんなユーティリティのところなど違った振る舞いがあるところのここをどのように違うのかっていうのを、包括的な形で分析して、それを見て比較がすることができるということなんです。で、先ほどの質問に戻りますけど、じゃあ最適化できるのかというのは、今の状況であれば、そのエージェント数があまりにも多すぎまして、最適化というのは今段階では難しいです。
ありがとうございます。ではスライドにもたくさん質問をいただいておりますので、一つだけご紹介させていただきたいと思います。復興モデルの検証において、実際にあった災害復興との比較は行いましたか？もし行った場合は、詳しくお話を伺いたいですという質問です。
So let me just give you one more question here. So in terms of, as for the recovery plan, have you ever compared with your recovery plan in the model for the actual recovery plan? And if you did validate those two, could you please elaborate them?
No, we haven't validated our model comparing with the previous recovery plans. Actually, one of the major problems is finding the necessary data for this validation. It's very hard to find previous observation in high resolutions. Thank you.
はい、いつもありがとうございます。実はそういった検証は私の方ではしておりません。と言いますのも、やはり過去の必要とするデータですね、これを高解像度のものっていうのを集めるということが非常に難しいということから比較はしておりません。ありがとうございました。
マッテゲダラさん、どうもありがとうございました。いただいた質問はですね、後ほどディスカッションの時にもご紹介させていただこうと思っております。どうもありがとうございました。